Hey everyone, welcome back to another MGUY2 video. For those of you who are new here, I've got a main channel called MGUY where I talk about my cars, a 2013 Maserati Gran Turismo, a 2011 Mercedes-Benz CL500 and an MG Midget from 1971. But in this channel I tend to do videos about things which are not related to cars. So in this video I'm going to show you the first of my analog cameras which I love using. I do have a great interest in photography and videography. Obviously I do a YouTube channel, so I love making videos, I love taking photographs. I do have a digital camera which I use for taking photos most of the time, but I grew up in the era of film. I got my first camera, back in the 70s, and it was an Instamatic, which took a 126 film cartridge, which is no longer available. I think it was the same size as 35mm in terms of the film width, but it had a single sprocket every frame, and that's how the camera knew when you wound on the film that it had to stop at the next frame. The quality was pretty shocking. I'll show you some of the pictures that I took with an Instamatic camera back in the 70s. I graduated slowly onto 35mm, and I guess my first real experience with 35mm was this camera here, which is a Zorky 4K, which is a Russian Leica knockoff. And I remember my father lending me this for one summer holiday. I think it was 1980. And this camera is actually really very, very good. I got some amazingly sharp photos from this. I'll show you a couple. I'll do a full video on the Zorky 4K at some stage, but I was just showing you this because this was kind of my first proper 35mm camera. These lenses, this Jupiter 8, it's an f2, 50mm f2, and if you get a good one, they are really, really good. I mean, quality control was a bit sketchy back in the day in the USSR, but if you got a good one, they were really good. I've just had it serviced, and so I'm looking forward to putting some film through it. Anyway, this is a video about this camera here, which is my Nikon F3 HP. So in the 90s, I graduated onto I'd been through a number of SLRs and different makes and models, and then in about 1993, I think it was 92, I saw a Nikon F401 for sale, just body only, and it was discounted and it was really cheap. It was an autofocus body. I think it was one of the first autofocus bodies that Nikon made. So I picked that up for cheap. I got a few lenses, and that kind of got me addicted to the Nikon system. But I never had one of the original manual focus Nikons from the 80s. And so when COVID lockdown kind of got going in Australia in kind of the middle of 2021, we're now mid 2022 at the time this video is being made, I decided to look out for a Nikon F3 just to get back into some film photography, but also just to take that little bit of extra time to give me something to be able to do during lockdown. Just, you were able to, I can't remember the exact details, but I think you were able to go out for a certain period of exercise each day. So I thought it was nice to take a film camera, shoot some film, and it's kind of mentally rewarding just to be shooting film. It's a much slower process. You've got to be careful about how you use your film. You've only got 36 shots. If you bang them off like you do digital, then it's a very short day, really. So it makes you stop and think and pause a little bit more about your photography, and I found it very therapeutic. And so anyway, I picked up this F3 on eBay, and it's really in remarkably good condition. I'll give you a little bit of a tour around it. Obviously, the Nikon F3 was the third Nikon professional series camera that Nikon produced. I mean, obviously the Nikon F, followed by the Nikon F2, logically, and then the F3, and subsequently 4, 5, and 6. This was the last of the manual focus F series. The F4 was the first of the professional autofocus cameras, but this was designed for professional use. It's very well built, very sturdy. It has a lot of facilities that you wouldn't normally get on a consumer camera, which I'll get onto. But I'll just talk you briefly through the features. This camera I got with this 50mm f1.4, which is probably one of the best general purpose lenses you can use on a Nikon. So here's your shutter speed dial here. You can see you've got, I'll just turn it around this way. You can see you've got fixed speeds from 8 seconds all the way up to a 2,000th of a second there. Then you have the auto position, which is in a lock, so you can't move it out of the A position without flicking that, touching that button. Same with X, T and B, and then you can go all the way around to a 2,000th, and then it clicks back into A. So that's your shutter speed dial. When it's in the A position, obviously that is aperture priority exposure, so you set the aperture you want on the lens here, and the camera will use its TTL meter to calculate the appropriate shutter speed for that aperture. You have exposure compensation on this side here, so you can dial in up to -2 or +2 stops of exposure compensation with that little button there. If you can see here, this is where you set your film ISO. Again, you just have to lift that up and then turn to set your film speed there. This was before the days of DX coding, obviously, so you had to manually set your film speed. One of the features of this, which is obviously a professional feature for safety, is that you have to actually push a little tab there to lift the film rewind lever to pop open the back, and you'll see pretty standard interior. It's got a horizontally running shutter, which is interesting. Let me just turn the fella on. There we go. So you'll see that this has actually got a horizontally running shutter, which is unusual by today's standards. Most shutters, especially when they're running at speeds like 2,000th, are vertical plane, because there's less distance to travel in the vertical plane than there is in the horizontal plane, so they tend to be vertical focal plane shutters. So that's a little safety feature there. The other feature that you've got here is a viewfinder blind, which goes across the inside of the eyepiece there. So if you're using the camera on a tripod and you're doing exposure and there may be stray light coming in through the back, you can close off the eyepiece blind so you don't get stray light affecting the metering. I guess the most obvious professional quotes feature of this is the I can never remember how these go. I think it's just that move them back and lift up, is the removable prism and focusing screen. So you can replace this prism with a waist level finder, various other different finders that you can put on here. Similarly, you can flick out the focusing screen in order to, as you can see, it just lifts up, in order to have different types of markings on the screen, or you might have, cross hatching, or different types of focusing aids. So this is what kind of makes this camera the first, or one of the first kind of modular cameras that allows you to customize it to whatever your particular job requires. You do have a self timer on here. It's not that one there. I think that is the I can't remember what that one is. One of them is a mirror lockup, and one of them is the depth of field preview. I think that's the depth of field preview, or is that the mirror lockup? That's the depth of field preview. I don't use some of these features, but there is a self timer on here as well, which is electronic, so you see a flashy blinky light there. Obviously this is the Nikon F mount, which has basically been the same ever since Nikon first introduced the Nikon F in 1957, so they're very proud that you can use all lenses from pretty much 1957 onwards, even on their modern F cameras. So yeah, beautiful piece of engineering. It feels very solid in the hand. It has the most beautiful film wind. I think it's just buttery, creamy smooth. Very interesting shutter sound. Very traditional, very distinctive of the F3. This one, as you can see, has got a data back on it. This is a very basic kind of data back, which allows you to imprint dates and times. I think that's pretty much it. It's got batteries, but it's got some dodgy connections in here, so I will need to fix that. But it does work. It does print. You'll see some of the pictures that I took have got the date imprinted on them, so that's very, very good. Underneath, you've got connections for motor drive and motor rewind here. Again, you could get some very impressive frame rates with the motor drive, but it was quite bulky. It's kind of a couple of inches here, but it did give you a pretty good frame rate on what is essentially a mechanical camera. So yeah, beautiful piece of kit. As I say, that's my 50mm f1.4, which is the standard. I also picked up this 24mm f2 lens, which again, I love the 24mm view, if you like. I find 28 and 35 are a bit too long for me, and 20 is a bit too wide, but 24 is just the sweet spot for me. Again, I'm not sure when this lens came out, but it's probably in the 70s, certainly a 70s design, but is still very, very acceptable for 35mm, and it's a great lens to shoot with. So that's an introduction to the F3. I'm just going to show you some photos that I took with this back in 2021, and I hope you enjoy, and thanks for watching.